So in the last video, we went ahead and did the newsletter area. We also did these boxes. Now we're going to move on to the About and the Why section. And this is going to include an accordion widget as well. So let's go back to our HTML. We'll go down to the bottom under our last section. And I'm just going to put a comment that says the About/Why section. And it's going to be a section tag with an ID of About. And let's give it a class of py5, padding on the top and bottom. Let's do text center, so everything is centered. And let's give it a background, a light background, so BG light. And then inside here we want a container. You can see that the sections are pretty much all structured the same. We just have the main section tag, then we have the container, then we have the row, and then whatever columns we want. This is going to be just a full column, so I'm just going to use a call class. And then in here, let's put the info header. So just to show you what that is, that's going to be this area here, the info header. So we'll do a div with the class of info-header. And let's also do an MB, a margin bottom 5, just to push everything underneath it down. And inside this header, we'll have an H1. Let's give it a class of text-primary, which will make it that bluish tealish color. I'm also going to give it a class of PB, so padding bottom 3. And then this is just going to say, why this book? And then underneath the H1, we'll have a paragraph with the class of lead and a class of padding bottom 3. And let's just put in lorem 15 tab, put some text in there. So if we were to look at that, it should look like this. All right, so I want this to look a little different. I don't want it to go basically all the way across like this, like all the way over here. I want to kind of only have it come to about here. And I also want to put a border on the bottom. So before I forget to do that, let's go to our CSS, our Sass. And let's add under the showcase, we'll say info-header. And let's set the width of the entire thing to 50%. And then we want it to be in the middle, so let's say margin auto. And then I'm also going to do a border bottom. And for the border, let's do 1 pixel. Let's do a light gray. We'll do DDD, and then solid. And let's save that. All right, so let's go back. And there we go. So I think that looks a little cleaner. So back to the HTML. Now we want to go underneath the info header. So that ends right here. So we want to go right underneath, and this is where we're going to put our accordion. So let's put a div here. Now remember, it's going to have an ID of accordion because that's going to be the parent. And then we also want to add on to, actually no, that's it. So just accordion as an ID. And then we want our first, basically our first part, which is going to be a card. So we want the class of card. And then inside here we want a class of card header. And let's put, well, that should be good. So card header. And in here we're going to have an H5, and I'm going to give it a class of MB0 to take away the margin. And then inside the H5, I'm actually going to use a div here with an href, and we can do that. We want to reference the whatever we want to open. Okay, so the collapsible content. So for href, I'm going to set it to hash collapse1, and we also want to add a data dash toggle and set that to collapse. And then when since we're using an accordion, it needs to have a data parent. So for data parent, we're going to put the accordion ID like that. And then within this div, I'm going to say get inspired, but I also want an icon in front of it. So I'm going to use font awesome. I'm going to say give it a class of FAS. And a class of FA-arrow-circle dash down. So it'll be an arrow that points down. Now we want to go underneath the card header, still within the card, but under the card header, which ends right here, and we want to put our collapse ID. So let's say ID collapse 1, and we also want to put a class of collapse and then a class of show, because I want this one to show automatically by default. Now inside here we want some padding, so we want to put our card body class, and then this is where we put our content. So I'm just going to say lorem 50 tab and just generate a bunch of dummy text. So that's pretty much it for the first one. So now I'm going to copy the entire card, which ends right here, still within the accordion, and let's go down here and paste that in and just change a couple things. So we want to change this href to collapse 2 and this ID to collapse 2. I'm also going to change this right here to gain the knowledge. And what else? We don't want the show because we only want the first one to show by default. So that looks good. Now we'll copy this card again, the second one we just did, and we'll put in one more and change this to collapse 3 as well as this. And then here let's say open your mind. And we'll save. So now if we look, we have a little accordion. Click on it, so that looks good. Awesome. So I think that's a good place to stop. In the next video, we're going to start on the authors section. So the authors will be like, let me just show you real quick. The authors will be these right here. We'll have these images. We're going to move them up out of the box a little bit, out of the card, and we'll be able to also hover over them. They'll also have some social media links. So we will get to that next.